Gum lesson number 10 is going into commas part 2. If you remember the last time we talked about commas, we talked about all those things that kind of make us kind of scratch our head over commas. So the idea that we breathe, we have those rigid rules, flexibility of language, and then we also talked about all the different ways in which we use commas. So last week we talked about coordinating conjunctions. This week we're going to look at subordinating conjunctions. So like you've already heard in class, this is a much longer list and it's a little bit more involved, but hopefully we'll kind of clear some of those things up in today's lesson. So commas part 2 is talking about connecting an independent clause to a dependent clause. So last time we talked about that whole two sentences getting joined together. Here you have a sentence being joined to a sentence that's got something extra tagged on, which makes it an incomplete sentence. So here's what we mean by that. In an independent clause, like we have the example here, it says Juniper wears dresses only on Sunday. Again, it's got a subject and a verb, so we know it's an independent clause. The dependent clause also has a subject and a verb in there, she and goes, but it has this other word tacked on at the beginning, because, which throws the whole thing off. So to connect these two ideas together, we're going to have to do some stuff. So take a look. Subordinating conjunctions, we already said that we've got a big long list. We've got more than 7. This is just kind of scratching the surface. Different resources online will say that there's upwards of 50 different words that we can use. The list that you're looking at here, and I tried to put the most common ones early on, but the ones that are listed here are some of the most common ones that you will see when we work with subordinating conjunctions. So words like because and if, after, before, until, these are subordinating conjunctions. So here's the rule. When you're taking a dependent clause and you're trying to connect it to an independent clause, you have two different ways of doing it. If you remember when we talked about coordinating conjunctions, we said you kind of have 3 options to choose from. Here you've only really got the 2. So the first way to do it is you can throw it in the middle. So like it says here, Pavel won't give us rides to the mall until we start paying for gas. All right, the until we start paying for gas, that's the dependent clause. So if we just stick that on the first part of the sentence, we don't have to do anything. No comma, nothing. It works on its own. If we use the subordinating conjunction at the beginning of a sentence, that's where we need to add our comma. So the sentence says the exact same thing, it just says it in a different way. Again, it kind of goes back to that whole variety thing. And that's all there really is to it. So, like we said before, when it comes to reviewing for this stuff, you're going to ditch those old habits. And like it says, if you're connecting that independent clause to a dependent clause, you only need a comma if you're going to start the sentence with a subordinating conjunction. So, if you think back to when you were in elementary school, or maybe even middle school, your teachers probably told you, don't start a sentence with because. Well, the reason they tell you that is because they don't count on you to know where to put the comma. As long as you know where the second independent clause starts, then you're in the right position to throw that comma in there. And then go ahead, start sentences with because. Use if, use when, use until. Use all of those subordinating conjunctions to add variety to your writing. The big thing is make sure that you know where those commas go. So those are the 2 options that you have available. Again, when we talk about coordinating conjunctions, we're talking about connecting 2 independent clauses. But here when we talk about subordinating conjunctions, we have an independent clause that's connecting to that dependent clause. And it's the subordinating conjunction that makes it a dependent clause.